All right, here we are. Welcome everyone to Fraud Fact Friday. It is episode 9, and I am here with Mike Sinno from the NICB, the National Insurance Crime Bureau today. Mike is the VP of training there. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Hi, David. Doing well, thank you.
Good. Thanks for taking the time to be on the show.
Oh, enjoy it. Thank you very much for having me.
Sure. So I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself, but the title of our episode has a lot to do with knowledge, with implementing proper training programs to enhance knowledge. We're going to be talking a lot about this kind of stuff, and I see people jumping on already. Hi, Todd. Nice to have you here. Thanks for starting the conversation, Todd Wolf. Anybody else watching, I can see you jumping on. Just say hello. Let us know where you're viewing from. Ask us any questions you may have during the show. Any questions you have for Mike, I'll feed them through as they come in. Otherwise, let us know where you're viewing from. And anyways, so our topic today, we're going to be talking a lot about training. And I start these things to allow people to jump on with I've called it the Fraud Fact Friday Fast Facts about my guests, and it's like an icebreaker, and it's you, Mike, answering 5 either/or questions. Just kind of fun questions. The last one I usually have something to do with our topic at hand, but you have 30 seconds to answer them.
Okay.
That's something you're up for?
Sure.
Okay. So again, I've got my funny clock here. I'm going to figure out a way to get this digital and get it on here in a countdown type thing, but I'll show my phone so you can keep up with the time. And you ready?
Sure. Yep. Fire away.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
A good book or a good Netflix series?
Good book.
Music or podcasts?
Music.
Card game or board game?
Board game.
All right. And live and in person or online trainings?
Depends on the topic.
Okay. All right. So we'll get into more detail on that type of stuff soon. You're a tea drinker. What's your favorite tea?
I like a chai tea. Good chai tea.
All right.
Yep.
And what do you
coffee makes you bounce off the walls too much.
Okay. What are you listening to right now? You said music, right? Music over podcasts. It's on your...
Yeah. I'm kind of stuck in the nostalgic retro, a lot of 80s, 90s music.
Right.
So really helps get through the development of training or even through the gym.
Cool. All right. So I am going to let you introduce yourself to all the viewers, anybody watching. So let the audience know kind of your role within the fraud fighting community. And your role within the NICB as well.
Okay. Yep. So Vice President Learning and Development here at NICB. I've been here coming up on 2 years now. What's interesting too, coming up on 2 years at NICB, but also coming up on 2 years of fraud fighting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Background has been in adult learning and human performance technology, master's in adult education, and I've worked in various industries, really just bringing good, solid learning and development programs to the audiences that were there for them. So I'm excited now to have the opportunity to really do that for, to fight fraud and for the vast majority of the communities that we serve, because it's very much a definitely interesting topic and different approach than with some of the other industries I've focused on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you were recently, one thing you do is you get out to different events and are learning things that way as well, or maybe even teaching things at different events, face-to-face learning and networking. And you were recently at the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies event. Is that right? Last week you'd mentioned?
Yes. Yep.
That's why we couldn't do our episode last week. That's why we're doing it this week. So what's that event all about? And what would you say are your main takeaways? I always find these things for fraud fighting to be a good way to exchange knowledge. What would be your takeaways from the event?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways, again, it's that sharing of knowledge from all the way around. Fraud doesn't have boundaries or barriers. It crosses states, it crosses countries, it crosses the world. So having everybody be able to come together and be able to share some of a network and share some of the cases that they're fighting or trends that they're seeing really helps everybody in the overall community fight fraud. Because
Mhm.
starting small somewhere, but just meeting there, talking with somebody about it, just kind of getting that seed planted in you. When it grows and maybe ends up in your area, you've already got a leg up on it to be able to help start the fight and combat it in your area.
Yeah.
So the biggest takeaway I think is the networking, as well as the educational sessions that happen is there as well too. Maybe a little
Mhm.
being a learning guy, but the educational sessions are always good because they give that opportunity to share knowledge. And it's not about, the conferences are never about really somebody trying to show they know more or do more. It's just about making sure that everyone has all the same information and bringing it forth so that everybody has all the tools necessary.
Cool. So the National Insurance Crime Bureau, is a twofold question now. Can you tell me a little bit more about the National Insurance Crime Bureau and then the specific importance of training to the organization?
Yep. So the National Insurance Crime Bureau, we're a member-driven, non-for-profit organization that was developed to really support the fight against fraud. We have multiple departments, basically disciplines that really help our member companies from all aspects, whether it be learning and development, operations, where we have our agents in the field that will help with major crime rings and share the knowledge that they have, whether it be experience from being law enforcement and gang task force, auto theft recovery, or other topics. We have a government affairs division that really helps with the regulations within different states and really help pass some of the laws that we really want to have help us fight and combat fraud. Public affairs, one of the key things is making sure that the public is aware of different scams that are out there, whether it be after a natural disaster and you have contractors that come in the area and take advantage. We're there to help really push toolkits to help homeowners find the right contractors,
Mhm.
a public awareness around our campaigns, whether it be YouTube videos, publishing a lot that we've seen out there to be able to help educate the general population, and then also our data analytics group. So a lot of the different data that comes in, we have access to a lot of our member data. So we're able to pull the trends and themes and publish to get that out to really help support what's happening that's out there.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've heard of the Hot Wheels report that comes out every year, the top 10 most stolen cars. That's one of the key things that comes from NICB, from the data analytics group.
All right.
So, and from a learning perspective,
Yeah.
so learning and development, as I mentioned, there's about 5 disciplines here at NICB. Learning and development is one of them. So becoming a member of NICB gets you access to the learning platforms that we have. We have an online on-demand platform called NICTA, the National Insurance Crime Training Academy. We have a catalog of over 50 learning courses that we're constantly updating and adding more to. We offer virtual fraud smart sessions, which are 1-hour presentations on topics that really allow people to come together and have the conversations about how these fraud schemes are impacting their areas. In addition to that, we also offer on-site for our members as well too. So where we can come on site and deliver training face-to-face to whether it be teams of claims adjusters, investigators, or the general organization, as well as running dedicated academies where we focus and have topics around medical fraud, vehicle fraud, analytics, as well as the legal side of it as well too.
Okay. So you're doing a lot of member training, but you're also doing a lot of just public awareness to get the word out about different fraud schemes that could be hitting in a certain area or during a certain time.
Yes.
Very nice. So just a hello to Lorraine. Thank you for joining. And Todd Wolf left a comment saying NICB is an awesome organization with training and knowledge experienced investigators. Thank you, Todd, for the comment.
Thanks, Todd.
So I want to move on. The topic of training has been a recurring theme on Fraud Fact Friday. Several of the people that I've had on the show have talked about the importance of training the people. Even for small businesses, it's really the people that can turn into the vulnerability for some fraud schemes if they're not aware of what's going on. So it's awareness training. So I noticed you have experience. I don't know much about it. I noticed you have experience with implementing the ADDIE model. Sometimes, I mean, with training programs, people don't know where to start. So what is the ADDIE model, and would it be somewhere someone could start if they want to implement a fraud training program at the organization?
Yes, and actually, I think it's a very good place to start, and it's basically the foundation of all education. So ADDIE stands for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate. So it's basically the key milestones you should go through when trying to put together a successful educational program. So analyzing to determine, is there really a problem? And really, that is the key thing. You know, in my career, as I've progressed up the chain and worked in many different organizations, it's always a fact of, it always seems like it's a training problem. Somebody does something wrong, well, they need to be trained on it. Or we missed our mark, well, it's a training problem. A lot of the times it turns out it may not be a training issue at all. This is, a little side note. So when you talk about human performance technology, there's really three main buckets that lack of performance falls into, whether it be financial performance, individual performance, or anything like that. So the three buckets are knowledge, skill, and motivation. And a lot of times everybody just thinks it's training. Well, training will really only solve one of those, which is the knowledge. Skill is something that people can learn and grow with, but everybody's got a different skill set. That's why you have some people who are really good at sports, some people who are really good at sales, some people who are really good at chemistry. It's a skill set that they have. Some can develop it, but training, you could train somebody all day long, but doesn't mean that they're going to be able to shoot like Michael Jordan or LeBron James. But the key one is usually the motivation. What is their motivation for doing that? What is their motivation for doing the right thing or going that extra mile? Are they getting something out of it? And a lot of times when you look at performance issues, it's that motivational piece really doesn't align with them doing the job that you're asking them for. But ultimately, people refer back to, well, it's a training issue.
Yeah.
So the analysis really allows you to determine what it is. Once you do the analysis, then you design it. What do we need? Do we need an in-person session? Do we need a virtual course? Do we need an e-learning, job aid? What type of resource? And once you've designed it, have the outline, then you develop it, put it in the program that's going to be best for the audience that you have. There's so many different tools out there, and they're getting easier and more user-friendly to be able to develop. Then you implement it. Once you've implemented it, you need to evaluate to see what works, because ultimately, once you evaluate it, you go back to the start with the feedback, update it, and you keep doing that until you have it polished up as perfectly as you need it. Following those 5 key milestones and the subtasks with those really help ensure that you have a successful program.
Yeah. So no matter the topic, it's a good framework to have in place to get a training going, I guess.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. You talked a little bit about it just now with the motivation side, but what tips would you have for gaining buy-in in a training program? I mean, a lot of times it's like from employees will get a sigh when a new program is trying to be implemented. So how do you gain buy-in for, let's say, a fraud awareness training program?
Well, I think part of it, as simple as it is, it's about semantics. You announced me when we started as the vice president of training at NICB. One of the first things coming in that I did was I rebranded the department to be vice president of learning and development. Training over the years and decades have come about having this negative connotation. Training being, I'm being sent somewhere because I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. There's going to be somebody there that's going to tell me what I need to know. Where really what we've come into this world to be about is about collaboration and growth and networking. And especially in fighting fraud, that's what's so key, is leveraging the knowledge and experience of others. It's about learning and developing and growing. And by just changing the semantics of the words, you get people more engaged. because now it's not about I'm training you, you have a deficiency I need to fill. It's how do we take your skill set and grow it? How do we take the seed that's been planted and grow it and continue your development in your path in your career? So the thing is about really how you present the opportunities to individuals. Everybody's busy, so how do you get them bought into going to it? It's about the development for their future. So really, the WIFM, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
Basically, when you develop something and you start communicating it out, what's in it for the individual who's going to be going to that session? Because that's how you get the buy-in to get them there.
All right, that sounds fair enough. I'm ready to go to a training. What do you have to offer?
Now, what do you want? Where do you want to go with it? That's the thing. So we can develop the training. It's like, what's in it for you? Do you want to develop? Do you want to come work for NICB? We can develop a training to get you ready to be able to be better positioned to come work for us.
Yeah. So Melly just joined. Hello. Thank you for commenting from Chicago. Thank you for joining. So in many of your job description fields, I research my guests thoroughly before they come on the show. You talk about being able to reduce budget. Can you talk about this relationship between reducing budget and having a solid training program?
Yeah,
because that has a little bit what's in it for me. For example, for top managers, what's in it for me? Reducing budget always sounds good.
Yes, and reducing budget is, and really what it comes down to is how do you leverage and how do you trust in the resources that you have? A lot of the programs where I've gone into, they leverage a lot of outsourcing. So they would outsource the design and the development of courses, where to me, again, learning and development, growing the staff that you have, they have knowledge, they have experience. We have an agent population, we have an organization with individuals 10, 15, 20, 30 years of experience. Why would I go outside and not, to have somebody build something when I can leverage them, their knowledge, and build internally? So a lot of external building and outsourcing versus internally. So leveraging and growing the staff internally, it gives you better buy-in, a more dedicated workforce, and it also in turn reduces budgeting.
Okay. So it's hard to keep people's attention these days. And keeping people engaged and things like that. So what would be your tips for helping to keep people engaged with training programs, and how are training programs today different than, say, 20 years ago?
They're different from 20 years ago because exactly to your point of keeping people engaged. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when you look at the different generations, there's so much research and so much work talking about individuals and the different generations, cradle to grave at organizations, to where now short-term multiple experiences moving around. It plays into really the investment that comes with that as well too. Training back then, in past has been really around training. I'm going there, I'm sitting there, it was a privilege to get to it, where now it becomes, people see it more as that punishment. And a lot of that is because leaner teams, and then also the attention span. You go out there and search, there's things saying that, we have been surpassed by goldfish now. So, goldfish have a longer attention span than the average individual and average human. Why is that? Because technology is taken over. So everybody has to be engaged, plugged in, understanding what's going on. So when you're developing training, you have to keep that in mind. Long drawn out scenario-based situations and role plays really don't work anymore because you lose the buy-in of the individual halfway through. Changing it up, changing the approach, whether it be lecture plus some engagement, some activities, even if you're doing a virtual session, breaking up videos and to help change up the environment, and that helps keep people engaged. I think these are a great example right here. The timing that you set for these are very short, because after a certain amount of time, while these are great and it's great information, people are just going to check out because they know they've got other things to work on. So it's really keeping it to the timing of the individuals that you have and really knowing your audience.
Yeah, and that being said, so what I do with these types of videos is I will create shorter videos out of them with the highlights, maybe for each individual question, and then share them on to people that could be interested as well. Because yeah, I know now we're at the 20-minute mark, and people say, okay, well, it's getting a bit long or something like that. Our intention is shifting. So yeah, you got to keep that in mind. So again, the time, I still want to ask a couple more questions if that's okay with you. I saw one of the courses you taught, professional versus personal uses of social media. So we've seen social media be excellent these days in sharing information to fight fraud. But there's this topic of professional versus personal, and I've given online marketing trainings myself, and this is always a question I'm asked. Do you have a private account, say for Twitter, or do you have a private account for Facebook and one you use for business? And I saw you did a training on this, and I was just wondering your opinion on it.
Wow, you really do dig into your guests. Blast from the past. I developed that training, I think 2005, 2006 timeframe. It was when I was working as a designer for a large multinational organization. And we reported into HR. And it was interesting because you think 2002 is when LinkedIn really went live and became mainstream. 2004, Facebook kind of came about. So they were very still in their infancy stages there. So, and a lot of times people had that competitive nature of, oh, I want to have the most friends possible. So they were putting on Facebook anybody and everybody they knew was a friend they were connecting with. Well, we're working within HR, we started noticing that there were challenges with teams that were really strong and working well together started having breakdowns and problems, and managers were really running into challenges. And really what it came down to is that separation between your personal life and your personal friends and your work life and your work friends. You know, the challenge became people were combining the two on Facebook, and then it was impacting their collaboration, because while you work with somebody, you see one side of them and you're friends from one perspective. But outside of work, whether they be old high school friends, sports friends, they have a different type of persona with them. And if ever any type of conflict with that, that can bleed over into the workforce and impact the collaboration and the teams working together. And that's what we were seeing. And so we really had to start advising and being informational sessions with people about, you know, this is what LinkedIn is for. It's more for the professional side, or set up a separate work account for that. I think Facebook really has kind of moved and grown and matured in that way, because now you have groups, and you'll see a lot of organizations have a Facebook group for employees. And that'll be started by employees, which then allows for that work, for lack of a better term, work appropriate conversation versus friends and really what the outside forces are like.
Okay. So times have evolved. I think it's really hard to separate the two still. I don't even try, really. I try to be me wherever I am, but it's hard sometimes with social media.
Well, and the key thing about that we had in that course, it's not so much about you. You can control yourself, but you can't always control your friends.
Everyone around,
yeah. And if you have work friends who are reviewing and seeing and possibly getting offended by your other friends who you've just kind of have in that way, then you know that's how you can separate that and how you protect everybody from them.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna scratch one of my questions here, because a question came in from Stanley. Thanks, Stanley. As a trainer in insurance fraud, what type of innovations or developments do you see to help investigators do their job? So have there been any types of innovations or developments lately?
In topics or in the actual delivery? Topics, I think, you know, that's going to be driven by the industry. And as we see, you know, the criminals get smarter, we'll be developing courses to really help focus and combat that and educate around that. Talk about technologies. I think, you know, virtual sessions and e-learning is really still our best, because it gives an opportunity to play in the gray area. You know, things about fraud is there's so much gray area that the development of training can play in that area to really help people understand and comprehend what they're looking at and how they really have to evaluate. The further advancements of virtual reality and augmented reality, I think, are going to be topics that really help as they become more refined over the next, 5 to 7 years, to really help drive the learning and development forward on all aspects. And I think it can easily be applied to fraud as well.
Okay. Yeah, and so he followed up with, yes, topics and also delivery. What about social media?
From a social media perspective, I think it is there. Honestly, I always look at social media as more on the communication side rather than the learning and development and training side. So, I think that, knowledge is power. So any ways that you can get it out is good. But, that to me kind of stems more on the communication side than the training side.
Kind of like what the NICB is doing with sending out warnings over social media about certain scams that are taking place in certain areas, using it as a communication tool, right?
Yes.
Okay. You just briefly touched on something I wanted to ask you about. In 2018, I was hosting a different podcast and had someone on who talked a lot about VR technology in training, and how this just really getting into it is a more effective way with these glasses on, that it really puts you in a situation. Are you doing anything in that area? Do you foresee doing anything in that area for training purposes within the NICB or anywhere else?
From an NICB perspective, it may be a little bit more difficult because, again, when I look at it, our population, our audience is decentralized. We support all of our members who are usually insurance companies. So for us to put together a program like that, because glasses right now still have to be plugged in, you have to wear the headsets, that people would have to come to us, or we'd have to have a location to be able to build to do that. See a lot of the travel restrictions that are coming in and the reduction in travel as more things become virtually based, it becomes more of a challenge for us. I see more space and more opportunity and growth in more of the augmented reality rather than the virtual reality. And being able to really overlay with different situations and different scenarios about what's going on and how we can provide our support and assistance from that perspective. So that's definitely something in the next couple of years we really want to hear at NICB from learning development perspective, really start trying to drive forward with.
Okay. So we are pretty much out of time. I wanted to just give you one last question regarding the NICB. What are some of the upcoming training sessions or big events that either you or some colleagues will be at coming up?
Well, NICB, we will be at IFM, Insurance Fraud Management Conference in Orlando in March. But the big one is, so NICB will be hosting our Fraud Academy 2020 in New Orleans. So we're going to be hosting a 2-day session. It's opened up for members, non-members, lawyers, prosecutors, law enforcement, claims analysts. So we want to bring everybody together that works within the fraud fighting community to come together and network. We have 2 days of sessions of topics. Some of the individuals you've had on here, Joe Stevenson, is actually going to be workshop for us down there. So, we invite individuals to come and spend 2 days in New Orleans, networking and further educating themselves on the fight against fraud.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. Very insightful. I appreciate you coming on, taking the time on Friday morning to be on the show and share some of your knowledge.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, then that is a wrap. We have an upcoming episode. Before we go, I wanted to just kind of show, some of you saw my post. We're going to be talking a fraud-free job search with Dana Niger. I hope I pronounced her last name right. We will be, I'll get it right by March 13th, that's for sure. But that's a planned episode coming up, just for your information. And yeah, thanks, Mike, for your time. Have a nice weekend. It's 4:30 here in Germany, so I'll be heading into my weekend now. You have a little bit of work ahead of you today, I guess.
Yeah.
But, all right, we'll be in touch. Thanks for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.